Listening to the IFF TV podcast.
Irish Football Fan TV, this is the final word. Serbia 3, Republic of Ireland 2 in Belgrade. I'm joined by Gary Spain and Gerard Brown. And I suppose, Gary, you were at the game. Ger, you were watching the game like I was. But I suppose the big talking points from the lineup, just to start off with, Shane Duffy was left on the bench. Jeff Hendrick was left on the bench. I'd say some people were saying it was for the better. I think the one with Duffy, though, in my opinion, it's just purely he hasn't played since over a month ago, and to be brought back in for such a big game, it wouldn't have really made sense. You probably would have said before previously that Shane Duffy just couldn't miss regardless, but I think the fact that O'Shea and Clark were both available and both playing regularly at Premier League level, that they came in there, and Seamus Coleman tucking in on that right side of the three centre backs made sense, and everyone was asking for it, and we got, I suppose, the formation that we were all looking for to kind of play to our strengths, the 3-5-2, which is another talking point. But Gary, when you saw that lineup, what were you thinking? Because you were obviously at the game.
Yeah, so we talked quite a lot about playing three at the back, because playing a system to suit the players we have available. So to me it made sense, but I was still surprised. I mean, when we were talking about it, Paul, I did say I think it's probably too soon to do it in Belgrade, because there was only 2 training sessions to work with the team, plus the fact that Stephen was normally, right through his career with Dundalk, he would normally play 4-3-3. So the formation was a surprise to me, but frankly, it was a good surprise. Then you go back to the lineup and you mentioned the big call on Shane Duffy, the big call on Jeff Hendrick. I mean, you can also say it was a huge call to leave out the likes of Robbie Brady, leave out James McLean, and even leave out Shane Long, who I know hasn't played that much, but he's still... So I did say it after the game, I thought it was very much a changing of the guard, that this is Stephen deciding to go with the younger players that he has had at under 21 level. I mean, to go with Josh Cullen, to go with Darragh O'Shea, and even to go with Jason Malumbi, who had done so well in the autumn, but is probably not getting the game time. So I think he made all the big calls based on the younger players, rather than making... You can say, okay, he chose Darragh O'Shea because he's playing regularly at Premier League level, and Shane Duffy's not getting a lot of game time. But Jeff Hendrick is playing regularly at Premier League level, and Jason Malumbi is not getting game time in the Championship or in the Premier League with Brighton before he went on loan to Preston. But Jason Malumbi had done superbly when Stephen played him in the autumn. He looked our best player, and we were all saying in December, well, certainly I was saying, I'll speak for myself, I was saying, I can't believe how Jason Malumbi is not getting game time with Brighton. I was delighted when he went to Preston, and he did get a couple of games, and then he's not getting game time. And I still say it, I cannot believe how he is not getting game time, because when I see him in a green shirt, he looks a really promising player. But successive managers at club level don't seem to give him the chance that he had at Millwall last season, because he did really, really well at Millwall as well. But so, yeah, maybe I'm going off the topic a little bit, but I think the big thing out of the lineup for me is that Stephen went with the younger players, rather than he went for the players that are getting game time, or he went for the players that he knew from the autumn that did so well for him. Because, I mean, Shane Duffy has never let Ireland down. He's been one of our standout performers. So if you're looking at Shane Duffy in a green shirt, he's nailed on to start. And really, the only reason that Shane Duffy, to me, didn't play is because he's getting a hard time at Celtic, and he hasn't got a lot of game time, and he's shipped a lot of criticism. Some of it, I think, is actually unfair. But that's okay. I'll accept my biased Irish hat on. I don't think he has taken the mountain of the blame for the fact that Celtic didn't get 10 in a row. And I think part of the issue is that Shane went there on big Premier League wages and on a big loan fee, because I've watched some Celtic games and Shane has done really well. And I don't think he's got the credit for that. And now I appreciate he's been the fault of a couple of goals. But anyway, so the reason I believe that Stephen did not pick Shane Duffy on Wednesday night was because of his Celtic form. But then he did pick the likes of Jason Malumbi purely
Well, he hasn't
his
played
Irish
since
form.
Valentine's Day as well, Gary.
But Jason Malumbi, how much game time has Jason Malumbi got since Valentine's Day?
But he still played,
very little, Paul, though. And Jeff Hendrick has played virtually every game for Newcastle at some point. He's on the bench for some of them, but I know he's been taken off in a lot of them, but he's got a lot of game time in the Premier League. So Robbie Brady's got quite a bit of game time lately for Burnley since he came back from injury. And I mean, he would have been a mainstay of Irish teams before that. And so it's...
I disagree with you, but anyway.
Okay, well, we can all disagree. That's fine. But I mean, I kind of feel that Stephen, in this game, very much went for the younger players that he knows and trusts. And even if you want to take the Aaron Connolly call, Aaron Connolly ahead of James McLean. And personally, I would have gone for Aaron Connolly as well, but he's had very little game time. Now, and James, in fairness to him, I mean, he showed up for this game when quite a lot of players would not, because I think it's quite obvious that Stoke didn't want James McLean to be in Belgrade on Wednesday night. He's just coming back from injury. And look, I'm absolutely delighted with James's commitment, his heart and everything. And he's so committed to playing for us. But... And in fairness, when a lot of players wouldn't, so it must have hurt him that he didn't start the match. And no, he did come off the bench, obviously. But so my view of the lineup was surprised with the formation, but that it was very much a case of Stephen trusting and going with the younger players. And I wonder, is that going to be the case from now on?
Well, I think I'll come to your thoughts in a sec, Ger, but I think with Connolly and McLean, one's a striker, one's a winger, so it was always going to be Connolly or Shane Long that was going to partner either Callum Robinson and James Collins anyway, in my opinion. But Ger, what were your thoughts anyway?
Yeah, I was surprised with the starting lineup. I didn't think this was going to be a game where he's kind of going to be kind of bold. It's kind of a bit annoying that maybe for one reason or another that he didn't go with this formation during the Nations League and we would have had a chance to build on it as opposed to waiting to Wednesday night, that for one reason or another this wasn't the team that played in Sofia last September in his first match. Obviously, we know with everything that happened since with COVID, he never would have got a chance to kind of build on this team. But like we're on about like the Shane Duffy situation, but as you touched on there, like we had all our defenders available to us were all playing Premier League. Now, with the exception of Coleman, they're all with struggling clubs who more than likely possibly could be in Championship next season. Definitely Darragh O'Shea and West Brom, Newcastle and Kieran Clark. That's on a knife edge really at the moment, isn't it? But I think overall, like I know why we conceded 3 goals. I don't think you can really play any blame on the defence. I thought Darragh O'Shea was probably one of our best players tonight. You could possibly be a little bit critical of him for the first goal. He was maybe just caught a little bit kind of napping on the wrong side after the flick on from Tadic. But as we were kind of saying off air, I would kind of put more blame on Clark. So I think when you come out and commit like that, you've got to go, got to win, and you got to go for it. And like you said, I think it was even a bit tame going up for that ball. Like even what Gary was saying there about Hendrick and Malumbi's situation, I get like where he's coming from, but like I don't know why I've questioned a lot what I do in my spare time, but one of them is watching a lot of Newcastle United this season. But even when Jeff Hendrick does play for Newcastle, he doesn't do anything. Like he hasn't done anything in a green shirt in a long time. I'm kind of sick and tired of waiting for this is going to be the game. This is going to be the campaign. We're going to see the old Jeff Hendrick. It hasn't happened. Malumbi is showing promise in the Nations League, and he wants to stick with the youth. He seems to use like them in train 1 level. I get where you're coming from. He hasn't played at Preston. I think that's a situation because he's gone in there, and quickly after he joined Preston, their form has dipped. They're now not far off the relegation zone. I think Alex Neil panicked, went with tried and trusted. Now he's been sacked or been let go. So Preston have a new manager. So I think that's a fresh chance for Malumbi. Now, Malumbi, I think you could kind of tell by him, he hasn't played a lot of football. He was a little bit rash. He gave away a couple of free kicks. I think maybe he was kind of trying a little bit hard. And then with the Connolly and McLean situation, it was always going to be a gamble to start one of them anyway, because neither of them fitness wise were probably going to be that sharp anyway. Like Connolly initially was ruled out of this match and somehow made it back. McLean, as we touched on there, like Michael O'Neill made it pretty clear after Stokes' last match that he didn't think he was fit. So it was always going to be hard to know. But I think it's a lineup to build on going forward. Like, there's still a lot of positives. I know it's disappointing because it was a game that was so crucial in this group. But there's a lot of positives with that lineup. I'm looking at like O'Shea, Malumbi, they're only like 21, Cullen's 24, Brown is 25, Connolly's 21. Like, that's nearly half the team that's all the right side of 25. So that's kind of good and it's encouraging. And older heads like Seamus Coleman, I thought was very good as well the other night. He really used his kind of good football brain, I thought. So still plenty of positives. It's a lineup I still like, and it's definitely a lineup I hope I see a lot more of throughout this campaign.
Yeah, well, I suppose, we'll go through the game. I suppose the first 10, 15 minutes, there was nothing really happening. There was a lot of just corners for both teams, and I thought, we kept to our shape very well. For a team that haven't played this formation before in terms of under Stephen Kenny, I felt as though we kept our shape very well. I watched the game again last night, and I have to say, I didn't think it when I was watching it on the watch along, but I suppose every couple of seconds you're looking down, you're looking at comments and stuff, so you're not 100% fully in concentration of the game. But when I watched it back, I have to say, Josh Cullen, for the way we've been crying out for a midfielder for so long to come in deep, take the ball and turn, and maybe even, take the press away, being able to turn them over. And he just did it, and he battles and everything that we had said building up to the game about Josh Cullen and why he should start. I think he embodied that and showed that throughout this game. But just the first 10, 15 minutes, I felt as though shape-wise, defensively, we worked really well and as a team and kept our shape very, very well. We limited them to very, very little early on, and we tried to play it out a little bit as well, which I thought was really good. Gary, you were obviously there. I must mention the pitch looked in bits as well. Players were slipping everywhere, by the way.
Yeah, it was a bit surprised at the pitch. It didn't look because the weather in Belgrade was pretty good. It was like here, it was pretty dry and everything. So I'm not sure why the pitch wasn't as good. I was actually very impressed with the start, Paul, because normally if you go away, particularly away against a higher ranked team, which Serbia were, kind of the traditional thing would be keep it tight for the first 20 minutes. And you mentioned the corners, but we had a go at them right at the start, and we got 2 or 3 corners in the first 5 or 6 minutes. And so I was pleasantly surprised at that. And so they obviously had a go at us as well, but not a huge amount of chances, as you say. But I thought it was a very positive start, and it wasn't a case that we were going to go there and sit back and try and get a 0-0 for 90 minutes. That was certainly not what transpired, but certainly not the case as well.
Chair?
Yeah, good solid start. As you said, it's very encouraging early on inside the opening 60 seconds, and you see us winning the corner down the right-hand side. But with Mark Doherty, that obviously led to another corner. Just disappointing, I suppose, the delivery on both cases. But yeah, as you said, for an away team to show early emphasis like that's been the front foot. But again, as I said, we were very, very solid and compacted. I know that the early RT stats were showing that they were having a lot of the ball, but that was expected. But we never looked like coughing up many chances or anything else like that. We looked kind of good and solid and secure, and it was definitely watching the game early on, you would have taken encouragement from it, and that you definitely felt that we were going to definitely be able to compete and be in this game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Obviously, in the 17th minute, we got our goal. It was a good bit of play out, obviously, on the right-hand side. Matt Doherty crosses in a bit of an aimless ball, but we managed to get it back through Alan Brown. He hits the ball out to Enda Stevens. Good bit of play. Good bit of movement by Colin Robinson as well. He gets on the ball. He stands up the cross. Alan Brown heads home. Our first goal in so long. And I have to say, it was a wonderful, wonderful feeling. To see us scoring a goal. I honestly questioned when is the next time we'd actually score a goal. So to see it going in, it was such a shock and it was such a relief. I'm sure you've obviously seen the footage from the goal that from the watch along of the ball going in and stuff like that. So it was obviously great. Gary, for you inside the stadium, what was it like?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, Paul. It was really great, and maybe you need to actually watch the goal a few times to appreciate how good it was and how well Alan Brown did, because he was involved twice in the build-up. As you said, he got the ball back when Matt Doherty effectively gave it away. But there was a lot of players involved in it. Enda Stevens was involved. just briefly, but setting up. Callum Robinson did really, really well on the left, and it was a lovely cross that he stood up. And Alan Brown had made the run from midfield, having fed Enda Stevens, and it was a great header as well. So very well worked, very good team goal, and what a start. I mean, whatever. Having been started on the front foot, it was great then to go and absolutely go a goal ahead, and things were looking really good at that point, and that must have given the team quite a lot of confidence.
Yeah, Chair, when you saw the goal, were you buzzing?
Yeah, it was a big relief. It's been a long, long time. I think 7 games. But yeah, just as you kind of touched on there, like that kind of move kind of sums up more the style of football that we want to see under Stephen Kenyon. And we'll touch on the second half. We had a couple of good build-up plays like that. But even when, Adam Brown played the ball out onto the left to Enda Stevens, like as we say, like he gets involved in the move twice. The fact that he shows initiative to get into the box, then it's really encouraging when Stevens gets the ball. There's someone coming off his shoulder, making the overlap in Callum Robinson. Does really well, gains that extra little bit of yard and puts a good cross in. And it's interesting as well, listen to Alan Brown after the game, like kind of touching on that little bit of connection himself and Robinson we've had from their Preston days. So he knew exactly kind of where to be, what he was going to do when he got that ball. Again, maybe a little bit as well, a little bit of fortune. Another day, another referee might have been a little bit pickier. If Brown had a little bit more force in his elbow going up, it could have been a free out, but thankfully luck was on our side for that. He was probably just the right side of kind of aggression as such, and it was a lovely, lovely header. Went into the back of the net. Look, doesn't matter, it was a good goal, it was a nice goal. Once we finally scored, it was a big relief. But yeah, because like the first 15 minutes were really encouraging. And then when you see that, you're thinking, great, brilliant. Now we've got something to build on it and kick on. And as we're going to touch on, like most of the rest of the first half was very positive.
Yeah, well, I think that what you said is perfectly put. Like, they literally had the lion's share of possession. They couldn't really do it because we were just set up so well, and we did limit them. Like they were getting in behind a couple of times. I remember Coleman made a really good interception, and when it kind of came off the back of Darragh O'Shea, and it actually went out for a goal kick. It was just really defended well. Coleman spotted the danger. I think it might have been Vlahovic who was getting in behind, and just we nullified them really well up until a point, and then they had that little bit of magic between Tadic and Vlahovic. For me, when that ball comes to Tadic, you're expecting, Tadic is known for his aerial ability. Do you know what I mean? I'd be expecting Kieran Clark to go through ball and man there and win the header, because for me, it's bread and butter for a centre-back to be winning that, especially the size of Clark in comparison to Tadic. But in Tadic's defence, it was an absolutely unbelievable header. It was such a good pass that it was just laid on a plate. And Vlahovic, again, another fella who's banging them in Serie A for Fiorentina, and a really good finish, in my opinion. Like, you can sit here and criticise players all you like, but I just think sometimes you have to applaud a good goal when it goes in. And from a defensive point of view, you say, "Oh well, we could have defended." Sometimes, in my opinion, when it's played like that, I just think, for me, Clark should be doing better. But after that, I think the finish is a wonderful finish. I mean, he can only put it in one area that Travers can't get to, and he puts it in that one area,
Yeah, I mean, Travers hadn't actually made a save until that goal went in. So I think that needs to be said, even though, as you said, Paul, Serbia did have quite a lot of possession. I think the half-time stats were something like 69-31 possession in favour of the home side. But that was the first time Mark Travers was actually being tested. Now, I wouldn't have any blame with him on the first goal. But yeah, I agree fully about Kieran Clark. Dusan Tadic was my man of the match, but he is quite a small player, and to win, and it was a beautiful header. It was perfectly positioned, perfectly cushioned, as you said, for Vlahovic. But you would expect someone like Kieran Clark to, if necessary, get man and ball and just win that header. And Vlahovic, I thought he took the goal really well. He is an informed striker in Serie A. He got a hat-trick there a couple of weeks ago for Fiorentina, and he got an assist, I think it was against Milan there last weekend. So he is a form striker. I was actually talking to a Serbian journalist about him, and he reckons Dusan Vlahovic is going to go to a massive club probably in the summer. Now, Fiorentina are by no means a small club. I know they've won European trophies, and they're maybe not one of the top 4 or 5 clubs in Italy, but there certainly would be. You'd expect them to be in the top half of Serie A, so they're still quite a big club. But he sees Vlahovic as being a top striker with a top European club, one of the top 3 or 4 clubs in one of the top leagues, and so to me that's a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Bayern Munich, a Liverpool, a Manchester United, a Manchester City, or someone like that. So he sees Vlahovic as being that good, or potentially to be that good. And certainly the way he took that goal, I thought it was a great finish. But it was really frustrating that 5 minutes before half time, it was their first proper effort on goal. The first time Mark Travers would have had to make a save, and it was really frustrating that they got the equaliser out of that, given that much of their play and their possession had been in front of us without posing too much of a threat.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty much just as Gary just touched on there, like the timing of it, just 5 minutes before half time was such a blow for us, considering that we looked so comfortable in the game. Echoed by the fact, as Gary said, they didn't even have a shot on target, so it wasn't even like as if we were kind of clinging on for half time. I almost just felt like as if half time was just going to come there and we're going to be 1-0 up. So it was a bit of a setback, and it was more than a bit, it was a big setback. And again, I'd echo as well what you were saying, Paul, like, for me, Clark has got to win that. Tadic, it's not like he was a Mitrovic, he's a big physical man there. He's a small, nice little player maker, likes the ball on the ground. And Clark, when he commits and comes out like that, he's got to win it. Like, and I do kind of just think that, like, looking back, like, was he 100% kind of fully committed going for it? Because he just, said, like, he didn't get the vibe that he went out for that ball, like, right, I'm going to get this ball, and man, maybe he was afraid of giving away a free kick in a decent area or something else like that. But no, then when it came to Vlahovic, as I touched on, maybe you could be a little bit critical of O'Shea, that was maybe just caught a little bit napping on the wrong side. But look, as you say, like, at the end of the day, it was, from a Serbia point of view, it was a well-worked goal and it was well taken. And Vlahovic, 21 years of age, he's flying it in Serie A. He is a player that we're talking about, Stephen Kelly and George Hamilton, that Serbia do have big hopes for. I thought in general, their front three, Vlahovic, Juric and Tadic, like particularly Tadic and Juric in that first half when they were struggling, everything kind of seemed to go through them. They were kind of always looking to make things happen. When they get the ball, they were always looking for that return pass. It mightn't have always worked out, but they worked endlessly for the Serbia cause, and that obviously continued in the second half. But as you just touched on then, like, how a goal can change a game, because in the last 5 minutes we just kind of were clinging on a little bit. Travers made a good save at the near post, went out for the corner. I think I'm correct in saying that was the resulting corner where Tadic tried to score directly from it, but obviously thankfully it didn't go in. Travers then getting across, thankfully from his own point of view, he didn't have a serious collision with the post. But it was so annoying by the end of the first half, a game that we were largely in control of for 35-40 minutes. We were kind of delighted to be going into the break 1-0 or 1 each when we should have been 1-0 up.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. I was going to come to the Travers part, but you've kind of touched over. I think that people, I know largely at the end of the game, people were going to criticise him for the second goal. We'll come to that in a sec. But that save just before half-time was massive, because if that goes in, at that point, we're going, oh no, like, we've literally turned over 2 goals in absolute no time after being so comfortable for so long. But I think in large parts, in my opinion, I feel like you've just said there, we limited them to so little chances, and then we go in, it's 1-1. I still thought we were the better team in the first half. I actually thought we were the better team for the first hour of the game, if I'm being honest, because I felt as though just our shape, we stuck to our game plan, we stuck to our task. And I'd mentioned before, I was interested to see how we'd actually do when we went a goal up. I wanted to see how we'd kind of do with that, and I thought we were doing well. As I said, it was just a little kind of flip of the switch, and next minute they scored a goal, and then the game kind of turned a little bit on its head. But once we got into half time, I think it kind of calmed down. I'd say Stephen had a word with them, just keep doing what you're doing. That's how we took the lead, and then we came out into the second half. Then, the kind of only real chance I have down here on my notes is like Vlahovic's offside goal. That for me was the danger signs were coming. Then at that point he got in. I think Clark just stepped up, in fairness to him, and Vlahovic went in, and he still, even though it was offside, it was a good finish, and I think he's going to be a lethal player. I think we need to really be aware of him when we play them again. I think he is a really good finisher, and I think you've seen that from the first goal. I don't think too many would have finished that the way he finished it past Travers. You know, literally it was one chance, one goal, boom, lethal, in my opinion. And yeah, at that point, you know, then I have we literally go up the other end, and Aaron Connolly is fouled in the box, and it should have been a penalty. On replays I watched back since, it was a penalty. He went through Aaron Connolly. But Gary, you were obviously in the stadium. Was there many shouts for a penalty, or what was the story there?
Mine. I thought it was a penalty. On first watch, it looked a penalty to me. I've watched it back a few times, and I still think it is a penalty. It actually depends on what angle you watch it at, because if you watch it from one angle, it looks nailed on penalty. If you watch it from another angle, it's possibly got the ball. But even if he got the ball, I think he goes through Aaron Connolly first because of the angle the defender is coming at. And I mean, you can call me biased or something, but I think that's a penalty you get every time at home and maybe away from home, even if there wasn't a hostile crowd, because obviously there were no fans, that maybe the referee doesn't give it to the away team. Now, having said that, there was a penalty shout a few minutes later, which it probably comes under the, I've seen them given, in fact, it probably was a penalty, but then you don't get the second chance of a penalty. Obviously, if we got the first penalty and scored it, the whole play would have been different. So maybe the second penalty to Serbia wouldn't have come either, which the referee also decided wasn't a penalty. But I thought Stephen was unlucky at that point, because we were right in the game, and had we gone 2-1 up with half an hour to play, I don't think there's any way we would have lost the game.
Yeah, Jer, at that point, how are you feeling? Because obviously there was the penalty, Coleman slips, they could have had a penalty, and obviously then Vlahovic with the offside goal, which for me was danger signs, you know, that they could still get in behind.
Yeah, and then there was just a long-range shot as well that Vlahovic nearly got in the end of as well. But we had a couple of good attacks as well. We had one down the left-hand side. I think Stevens put a good cross in the box, and Robinson just couldn't quite get to it. Unfortunately, the defender got there ahead of him, but he was pretty much square on, dead straight with the goal. So he made a clean contact with that, only 14, 15 yards out. Who knows, that could have went. Then we had a good move as well down the right-hand side. Doherty push. A good ball into the box that put out for a corner. I felt overall, in general, our standards of set pieces from deliveries, I think this is probably where we missed Conor Hourihane last night, or maybe even if Robbie Bailey had started the game. We're not great. I know like Brown put one in and wasn't great, but I think Doherty still managed to get his head on it. But they're always kind of struggling to beat the first man, or they never had much elevation on them or height on them, which was frustrating. But it still felt kind of fairly okay, that we're still kind of doing okay. We're holding our own. We were kind of playing very well, you could say, for an away team, having our counter-attacks looking dangerous, trying to utilise them, but still looking fairly well, compact defensively. Yes, they were having the odd little moment where they're going to get in behind and have their chances, but that's going to happen over the course of a football match. But you still can't say that our defence was being stretched or that Travers had to work overtime or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree. Just you mentioned there about that chance with Doherty. I must say that bit of play, that passage of play that led to that ball in by Doherty on the right hand side, Darragh O'Shea stepped out from defence and started that. He beat the press, and then that started the move. And I just thought, from that point of view, you are seeing signs of us actually trying to get up the pitch and play football, to get up the pitch rather than just going whoomp and alone but long and try and hit the front man. We were actually trying to get it out, and it all kind of stemmed from I think Stevens might have played it back, but I remember Darragh O'Shea coming out, beating the press, and the ball then makes its way out to the right hand side. I must say, I mentioned Seamus Coleman there, but I just thought he really, I know, look, I'm going to come to their goals in a sec, but I just thought he really commanded that area so well. I thought he was brilliant. I thought it was great to have him back in that team. And he put in the performance that we all said if he was picked that he would give. We definitely missed his leadership. You know, it's been so long since he was back in the team, or so long since he's been in the team, and now he's back in the team, is what I meant to say, sorry. And I just think for someone who doesn't really normally play that centre-back position, I know he's kind of just right side kind of covering, but a lot of the time he was getting the ball from those goal kicks and stuff like that, and he was helping beat the press and turning out and stuff like that. And he's just such a clever footballer. You don't really see him make too many mistakes. He gives the ball simple, always tries to give the simple ball. He's always an outlet. He always makes good angles for the ball. Josh Cullen as well. Always feel like he makes really good angles to receive the ball. And same with Jason Malumbi. I think with Jason Malumbi around this kind of hour mark, he starts getting tired and gets subbed off for Hendrick. And then not long after, Aaron Connolly's down with a cramp and he gets replaced by Shane Long. A couple of minutes later, they make 2 subs, which ultimately was to our detriment. Mitrovic and Maksimovic come on. And then, even still at that, I think that was when the game flipped. I think we really missed that balance in midfield with Malumbi and Cullen there, because Malumbi will give you that energy, but defensively he's solid too and he holds his shape very well. I think that's when we started losing our shape. I know Hendrick came on, but I don't think he's a very good centre midfielder in terms of a disciplined centre midfielder who's going to sit in front of the defence alongside Josh Cullen. I felt he was playing a little bit further forward, and obviously Alan Brown was in the number 10 position anyway, so it wasn't probably his duty to get back behind the ball. It was, I think, his duty was more to get into the box like he did when he scored the goal. So I think when Hendrick came on, I think we lost that little bit of balance. And I suppose the next talking point is going to be Mark Travers coming off his line or coming out. See, I think it's such a fine margin, isn't it? Like, you look at Travers and you can kind of see the ball by Tadic is brilliant because it fills not only Travers but Darragh O'Shea as well, because they're kind of both in limbo. Then it was just a really, really good pass as well. You gotta appreciate a good pass. If one of our players did it, we'd be like, oh, that's magnificent. But such as the critics that we are, obviously, because it's against us, we're like, oh no, it's terrible. So Travers tries to anticipate to be like a sweeper keeper if the ball but the ball just seems to kind of stop just perfectly for Mitrovic. And in fairness to Mitrovic, it's an absolutely brilliant finish. And I think 9 out of 10 of them go over the bar or go wide, and we just got done in this case. And unfortunately for Mark Travers in this scenario, it was him that got done. But Gary, when you seen that and when you see Travers coming up, you think, because I said it on the watch line, I was like, oh no, what are you doing? Get back on your line. What were you thinking at that point?
Yeah, you mentioned Tadic, because I actually thought he was absolutely superb, and his passing, his movement. For me, he was clearly man of the match, and he looked a real class player with just about everything he did. And I mean, I'm thinking back to watching him in the Premier League with Southampton, where he didn't really, I think, reach that level. But I mean, at Ajax as well, he's looked superb in the Champions League. So maybe just the Premier League. No, he had flashes, don't get me wrong, but on Wednesday night, he just looked a class above anybody else in the park. It was a brilliant ball, as you said. And Mark Travers, he was at fault. So there's no doubt he was badly positioned. He wasn't where he should have been. But as you say, Paul, 9 times out of 10, even 99 times out of 100, your goalkeeper gets away with that, because there still wasn't much room for Alexander Mitrovic to put that ball, and it was a superbly executed chip. And someone who, again, to me, hasn't looked that good this season in the Premier League with Fulham. He's only got a couple of goals, but maybe worryingly, he had looked very good in that game against Darragh O'Shea when Fulham played West Brom. But it was a superb finish, and fortunately, Mark Travers does have to take some of the blame because of his positioning. But I think you also have to give superb credit to Dusan Tadic and Alexander Mitrovic for what was a wonderful team goal for Serbia.
Sure, when you saw what ultimately played out, what were you thinking?
Yeah, it's amazing. I was just watching the game back myself last night, and when Tadic plays that ball through, maybe just because I knew what was going to happen, but my eyes were drawn instantly towards Travers, and I was just thinking to myself, why are you so far out? But I think as you were kind of going back to there, the sweeper keeper instincts, and he's probably, maybe it's one of them as well. Initially, when the ball is played, maybe from Travers' point of view, it looked like it had more on it than there was initially, and he's kind of thinking, if I rush out, I can make this and make the clearance. Obviously, then I think as he realised, oh no, this ball is slowing down, and Mitrovic is getting onto it, and he just gets caught out as well. Look, I think as Gary said there as well, like, you have to kind of lay some of the blame just for his kind of poor position and everything else like that. But when you look back on it and how far out Mitrovic was, like, you just have to, one, say it was a piece of absolute brilliance, and two, Mitrovic just showed an unbelievable pair of Leroy there, because not many players would have even done what he did. Most players would have seen, I'm one-on-one with the more or less one-on-one with the keeper, fair enough with an angle, go loads of space. I'll just run this in and get myself a nice composed finish. But to have the audacity to take on something, as you said, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to go over the bar or it's going to drop short and Travers will catch it. But to finish it like that from outside the box was just pure genius. But from our point of view, unfortunately, it was frustrating. But it's something that, look, Travers is going to learn from. And it's just disappointing, unfortunately, the way that happened.
Yeah, I would agree. I was watching it and I was just like, oh. And I knew he was going to get caned for it after by fans and stuff like that. I've seen he's getting abused and stuff like that. It's not right. It was a half a mistake. And if the ball goes over the bar, no one talks about it. If it goes wide, no one talks about it. But it went in, so ultimately it is going to be talked about. I think, as you said, Jerry, I think he did think there was a little bit too much on it, but it's just such a clever pass that it catches our defence and our goalkeeper out. And sometimes you just have to appreciate greatness at the same time. Yes, he was a bit far off his line. Yes, he probably thought there was more on it, and wasn't sure, because I thought Darragh O'Shea could have, shepherded him out to the touchline or towards the corner flag. But Mitrovic for Serbia has an unbelievable record. I think he's 30 odd goals for Serbia in international football. He is really good internationally. Maybe Serbia, they suited him better, but he's really, really good for them. And in fairness, Milos had said on the preview that to watch out for him because he is very good for Serbia. And then moments later, that was in the 62nd minute, he scored the goal. Or no, 68 minutes he scored the goal. And then in the 74th minute, he gets his second because Tadic spins off Cullen. But then after that, nobody closes Tadic down, and he's just able to pick out the ball. He gets up ahead on top of Clark and heads it over. It was kind of like a lobbed header. It was very controlled over Travers, and it was 3-1 then, and you're just thinking, oh no. Like, we barely score anyway, so we have to get 2 more to get back into this, and you're just thinking at this game set match. But Gary, when you saw their third goal go in, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think there's probably another point to make as well. The first 2 goals for them gave them superb confidence, and they really played. I think the 5 minutes after the first goal, Gerard's already said it, we really needed half time. And otherwise, I think had the first half gone on for a couple more minutes, they would have scored again. And unfortunately, once they got the second goal, they gave us a right chasing, and we looked a bit ragged. So the third goal was probably coming. And as you said, it was a great finish, a great header from Mitrovic. And it was game over. I think, we can talk about what subsequently happened, but certainly I thought, that's game over. I think the Serbian manager, Dragan Stojkovic, thought it was game over as well, because you may have noticed he made a number of substitutions. And I think that was with a view to the Serbia-Portugal game on Saturday night, because that's once they went 3-1 up, I think he thought, game over. Let's take off the key players and rest them. But the few minutes between Serbia scoring their second goal and scoring their third goal, they just looked a different class to me. They caused us huge problems, and the quality of some of their individual players is really breathtaking. And we don't have players of that quality. If anything, I think we have a better team, better organisation, and that may come in time for Serbia. But if you look at the quality of player like Dusan Vlahovic, Dusan Tadic, Aleksandar Mitrovic, and even the quality of some of the Filip Juric was actually, as Jared mentioned, was superb as well. Even if you look at the quality of players on the bench, the likes of Filip Kostic and Sergej Milkanovic Savic, whatever way you pronounce that Lazio player. Sorry, I'm murdering it.
Milenkovic
Savic. Thanks, Paul. Another class player with Lazio. So Luka Jovic was on the bench. Real Madrid, what did they pay, 60 million or something for him? He's still banging the goals in now with Eintracht Frankfurt. And I mean, all of these players would be nailed on to start with us. So at times, and particularly for the second and third goal, they were simply breathtaking. And we couldn't live with that.
Yeah, well, you did mention there about him making the substitutes. I think Tadic went off anyway. But Jer, at that point, when the third goal went in, were you optimistic we could get back into it, or what way were you feeling?
Well, a lot of optimism even after the first goal, to be brutally honest. But no, even when the second goal went in, because of the fact we've gone so long without getting a goal, I think George Hamilton touched on in commentary afterwards when Collins got the goal later on, which we'll touch on. It's the first time since Moldova away we scored more than a goal in an away match, and that's touching 5 years this autumn. So that just tells you how slim it always was going to be, and the time limit that was left as well. It was always going to be difficult. And I think, as Gary touched on there as well, the tide had really turned in the game after the second goal. Their individual quality just started to shine through. Tadic, as you both touched on, was just excellent throughout the night. And yeah, again, when you look at the third goal, like, fair enough, like as you said, like, he spins Cullen, so he takes Cullen kind of out of it, but someone has to kind of press up and just put the pressure on him. It's even a little bit annoying as well, if you want to be critical. You know, Mitrovic beats two of them for that header. Again, I think that's just down to sheer raw power, because as we've seen in his time in the Premier League with Newcastle and Fulham, he is just a physical beast, and he can be a big bully to centre-backs. So there was always going to be slim. To be honest, I was even surprised that we actually got the goal back towards the end, but it was still encouraging, obviously, the fact that we scored 2 goals away from home, despite the fact that we lost, that we can take that going forward. And even just to touch on there as well, Gary was mentioning about the individual quality. That's probably what the difference was, because I think overall, in general, as we touched on, for an hour, we were probably slightly the better team. And overall, in the overall balance, a draw was probably a fair result, I thought, last night. But it was that little bit of individual quality, with Tadic playing Europa League, Champions League football with Ajax, Vlahovic as well in great form in Serie A, and even some of the players that Gary touched on, Jovic, he's on the books of Real Madrid, and he comes on as a sub for them. Savic is playing the Champions League with Lazio. He doesn't even come on. Whereas we have Sir James Collins struggling to play for a Luton Town team mid-table in the Championship. So likewise with James McLean, struggling with injuries. Robbie Brady coming on, with a struggling Burnley team in the Premier League. It's just, unfortunately, them little things probably swayed the game in Serbia's favour in the end.
I just think, just on that, because with their players, they even had a lad playing in midfield that was playing for Valencia as well. So
that's right. Jukic, was it?
Yeah. So they have good quality all around the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Whereas we're kind of going, okay, well, Matt Doherty plays for Spurs and James Cohen plays for Everton, and they're probably our 2 best players on the pitch. And Doherty kind of struggling to get into the Spurs team every week as well. So yeah, you can definitely see that their quality ultimately played out. You said there, as well, that we were largely the better team. I think defensively we were. Possession based, they obviously were, in terms of they were creating more chances, but I just think that we limited them to very little. And defensively, I suppose we would say that we were the better team, but they would probably argue that they were the one dominating us in terms of possession and stuff like that. And you can't really argue that, to be fair. But then obviously Stephen makes the triple subs when we concede the goal. He brings on James Collins, James McLean and Robbie Brady, and he takes off Callum Robinson, Alan Brown, and who was the other? Kieran Clark came off. So Stephen really wanted to try and get a result here. He didn't settle for, let's keep it 3-1 and not try and concede anymore. He did try to get back into the game. Now, I appreciate we didn't have a whole lot to kind of shout about. So probably we got our goal, which was basically Shane Long doing what Shane Long does and chasing lost causes. I showed great awareness to realise that James Collins was close to him. It was just that deft little touch and that little bit of experience where other players maybe try to go for goal there or something like that. But it was a deft little touch, and James Collins then he's not going to miss from there. Although I actually thought it was quite a good finish, considering there was a Serbian player sliding in and it doesn't hit off that Serbian player as it goes in, and he just follows it in to make sure it goes in. Probably was thinking, I'm not going to let this be an own goal, and he gets his first competitive goal. In fairness to him, all good strikers follow it in, and he put it in. And at that point then we're going, okay, we had our tails back up and we actually looked like we were going to get back into it. Gary, when the goal went in, because I didn't get a chance to see your reaction maybe on Instagram, so what were you thinking when the goal went in?
So I think it did come a little bit out of the blue. I think I'll be honest. I mean, I know Stephen and credit him for going for it and taking the chance at 3-1 down, but I thought it was game over at 3-1. And he did run the risk, of course, of it becoming 4 and 5-1 and potentially having take a lot of criticism for that. brilliant from Shane Long in particular to chase it down. It was a bit of a lost cause. And again, as I said, he had the presence, the awareness of mind to lay it back for James Collins instead of taking it on from pretty much an impossible angle. And James Collins did really well to follow it in. Bit of a scrambled one at first. It was a bit of a scrambled effort, I suppose. But once it went in, it was definitely game on. And I thought, these guys are going to get nervous because you're 3-1 up. You've taken off your best players. You have half an eye on tomorrow night's game, and suddenly they're nervous. I mean, it's back to 3-2, and I thought, this is game on. We've got a real chance here, and I suppose unfortunately we didn't. I know we got a corner and whatever else, but we didn't really pressure them enough, or we didn't create any more chances because I thought there was just a glimmer there. And maybe if we had a few more minutes to just even a few set pieces, put a couple of balls into the box, that we could have nicked an equaliser.
Yeah, I think that's correct. We ultimately we ran out of time. I don't think we were ever actually going to get the third goal. I think it might have been wishful thinking. Like, obviously we would have wanted and loved for it to go, but I think, as you mentioned there, the goal came out of the blue, didn't it? So,
I think
at that point, we never looked like we were going to score, Yeah. Jer, when you saw the goal go in?
Yeah, same. Like, to be honest, the goal kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't see us getting back into it after probably 2-1, definitely 3-1. And as you kind of said, like, did I ever really kind of fully believe? I know, as Gary touched on, maybe they weren't fully focused because they had some of their players taken off and we had now the little bit of momentum, but I still didn't fully believe as if we were going to kind of get that extra little bit of spark or creativity to create another chance to get a goal. I know we had the corner and stuff like that. Maybe it's a case of if the goal came, I think the goal came, the 86th minute? If it even came 5 minutes earlier, we would have had a full 10 minutes plus injury time. I just kind of felt it still came a little bit too late just to kind of really rally the troops. And I think Serbia were still going to be hell-bent and focused on making sure they didn't cough up another goal. But look, it's just unfortunate. It's a weird one. Like, if you told us before the game we were score 2 goals away from home, I probably thought we were going to win the match, to be brutally honest. Because I always felt defensively we were going to be quite solid. And even though we did give up 3 goals, it's not like we gave up a half full of chances like in previous matches. Think back to, like, even the time about Germany at home, like, they battered us. The Wales victory as well in Cardiff, and McLean scored, like, they had numerous chances. It literally Serbia took whatever chances they had. So just frustrating from that point of view, but overall there's still plenty of positives to take, and it's finally good just to get the monkey off the back and not just get 1 goal, but now to get a couple of goals.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, look, overall it finished 3-2 to them, didn't it? And I think we could take positives out of the fact that we got the goal thing is gone now. That hoodoo is gone. Like, even if we went another 5 games without a goal, it's gone for now anyway. I don't think that would be the case. I think people they're buying into what Stephen's saying. We've got to remember the bigger players that we were missing for this game as well. I think it'll be a different game in Dublin. I think we'll know what to expect a bit more from them. I think we'll know what to be wary of. But we'll also have, I don't think John Egan loses that header to Mitrovic in the box. Do you know what I mean? So, or Shane Duffy even. And that's what I was saying in my Starting 11 show, to maybe have, Duffy and Clark in that scenario, but then you're taking away from Darragh O'Shea's ball playing skills as well. So look, I can see, I'm not critical of Stephen in this case. I know some people are and saying he's an amateur coach and he's out of his depth, this, that and the other. But I thought we made a good account of ourselves. People were questioning, were we going to be the same outfit defensively under Stephen? And I think if you look, bar 2 quick-fire goals that they got, I think largely defensively we were quite good and we defended well. We kept our shape well. I think when Stephen gets a large chunk to work with this team, I think we'll start seeing really good signs of our team really improving. But I think at the same time we still need to be patient as fans. And I said all the time, I know we are. I'm willing to play a longer kind of game. There's people onto me on Twitter and saying, "Oh, but it's not good enough." Would you be saying would you be giving Martin O'Neill this much leeway and stuff like this? But Martin O'Neill had one. There was no changing of the guard. It was a lump it and chase it into the channel type of football. I actually enjoy watching Ireland play. I definitely enjoyed our performance the other night. You can see what we're trying to do. It's not going to happen overnight. I appreciate that, but like when you have, I think Seamus Coleman going forward has to start if he's fit. I think you can see how much he adds to our team. He's just brilliant. No matter where you put him, like I think tactically he's flexible. So you can put him as a right winger, you can put him as a right back, you can put him as centre back on the right hand side as well. I think going forward, I think Josh Cullen has to be that six now. He's shown that he can deliver in that position. He gets the ball, he's always screening, he's giving it and stuff like that. So overall, Callum Robinson for me got man of the match. I thought he chased down everything. I thought he was really good. He obviously got the assist. I think Alan Brown done quite well in terms of the goal. Maybe not his overall play, but yeah, I think overall, I think 3-2, there's not much you can really say. I think we were going into the game hoping that we would get a 1-1 draw or, you know, a draw at best, and to finish it 3-2 and to finish strongly, I thought was good. People may say that's a defeatist attitude or whatever, but I got to be realistic. We spoke about their bench compared to ours, and look, it's night and day compared to their bench and ours, and that's what made the difference in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think they just about deserve to win, in fairness. But I think, as you said, Paul, they have quality players and players playing at far bigger clubs than our players, and ultimately that made the difference. Just that bit of quality, in particular in Dusan Tadic, and but there were a lot of encouraging signs, and hopefully we'll kick on from that. I mean, it is going to be very, very difficult for us to even get the playoff out of this group. And I think qualifying for Qatar is a big, big ask. And probably, if I'm being honest and realistic, I think it's unlikely. I think it would be some achievement to even get runners-up, because Portugal are probably another level above that Serbia team. And even though they struggled to a 1-0 win over Azerbaijan on Wednesday night. So there were quite a number of positive signs, as you said, and looking to the future. And what I'm really looking for from this campaign are performances like that, positive signs, players like Josh Cullen showed on Wednesday night, that they're going to be here, they're going to be around for the long haul. And I think we're going to see the best out of this group of players in the qualifiers for Germany 2024, because that's a tournament I think I'd certainly expect us to qualify and perform at. And so for this campaign, I'm really looking for performances and for a lot of the younger players to come through and put their hand up and say, I should be starting every time.
Jared, do you have anything to add to that before we wrap up?
No, just kind of, yeah, just very similar to what Gary was kind of saying. I never really had much optimism, unfortunately, for even finishing second in this group. I just felt it was going to be a campaign too soon for us. And then when you see the fixtures, Serbia away, the team we're going to be competing for that second spot away, you kind of know already that the group is nearly going to hang on that. Like, we now have to win the return game in Dublin to give ourselves any chance of finishing second. That we also have to pray as well that Serbia aren't going to take anything off Portugal. But you wouldn't know, like, Portugal only stumbled to a 1-0 victory against Azerbaijan the other night. Now, I was looking at their team, like, they had Moutinho playing, they had Neto playing, Bruno Fernandes wasn't starting, so maybe they have one eye on this Serbia match. And as Gary kind of agrees, like, it's just, as long as for the rest of this campaign we do what's required, we get the maximum points off both Luxembourg and Azerbaijan, we finish third, we can get a couple of positive results in the other three matches, see signs of progression that we kind of are heading in the right direction, protect that seeding then going forward for Euro 2024. Because I do agree with Gary, it's probably going to be an easier tournament to qualify, and I do think a lot more of these players will be seasoned, they'll be a lot more developed and progressed in their career, and it will be a good chance. I think then is definitely a risk to game to see Ireland playing at a major tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a longer game we need to play here. But look, as I said, Stephen may get time to work with the players in June, and I think there's a couple of friendlies to be announced for that as well. So let's see how that goes. But we definitely need a win against Luxembourg this weekend. So I think just to wrap it up on that note, huge thanks for coming on and talking about that, lads. And anyone who's watching, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to follow the lads, and don't forget to follow us on social media as well. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.